Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most astonishing, rapid-fire crises in the entire history of sports governance. Over the course of just 4 days in July 2026, global football was completely turned upside down. It all started with a multi-billion-dollar proposal that promised to totally revolutionize the game, but instead, it triggered an unprecedented, massive revolt. We're going to break down exactly what went down, who the key players were, and why the fallout from those wild 4 days is literally still rocking the football world right now.
Here's our roadmap for untangling this whole mess today. 1. A multi-billion-dollar shock. 2. Inside FIFA forward. 3. The global football revolt. 4. Boycotts and political backlash. And finally, 5. The plan collapses.
All right, part 1. A multi-billion-dollar shock. Let's set the stage for the explosive financial announcement that kicked everything off. On July 28, 2026, the news drops. FIFA announces they're planning to create a brand new commercial subsidiary called FIFA Forward Enterprise. And right out of the gate, we have to talk about the sheer financial scale here. This new company was slapped with a staggering valuation of $20 billion. Even in the high-stakes world of sports business, a number like that, it demands instant attention.
So why the massive $20 billion price tag? Well, FIFA's goal was to raise $4.2 billion in fresh upfront capital. To do that, they planned on selling off a minority stake, up to 20% of this new company, to private investors. You had investment firm Thrive Eternal reportedly leading the investor group, with heavy-hitting financial advisors like JP Morgan putting the actual deal together. For FIFA, this was basically their way to attract massive long-term investment while still keeping their hands on the wheel.
Moving right along to part 2, inside FIFA Forward Enterprise. Let's actually dig into the mechanics of what this new company was built to do.
The definition here is absolutely crucial. FIFA Forward Enterprise, or FFE, was essentially designed to be the vault holding FIFA's crown jewels. We're talking the Men's and Women's World Cups and the newly expanded FIFA Club World Cup. The FFE would manage the commercial and operational rights, so broadcasting, sponsorships, ticketing, licensing, the whole shebang. Basically, the most lucrative assets in all of global football were going to be bundled into this one single subsidiary. Now here was FIFA's pitch. They argued that they would still retain majority control, meaning football governance wouldn't be compromised. But the real hook? The payout. FIFA projected they could distribute up to $40 million to each of its 211 member associations. For the massive, wealthy federations, sure, that's a nice bonus. But for smaller nations, that kind of cash is completely transformative. Actually, federations like Indonesia and Comoros publicly threw their support behind the plan. The president of the Comoros Football Federation even pointed out that getting $20 million up front would fundamentally change grassroots football and infrastructure in his country.
Which brings us to part 3, the global football revolt. Because as attractive as that pitch was to some federations, the reaction from the biggest players in the game was furious, immediate, and totally unprecedented.
Literally overnight, a stark divide split the football world right in half. On one side, you've got FIFA, promising a huge increase in global funding while keeping governance control. On the other side, major governing bodies and critics were staring at a proposal that, from their perspective, was developed with zero prior consultation, had glaring transparency issues, and pushed this deeply unsettling idea of private investors owning a slice of the sport's greatest competitions.
UEFA, European football's governing body, really anchored the backlash here. When the Times first broke the story, UEFA's reaction was nothing short of explosive. They flatly stated this was a line that football's governing institutions should never cross. And then they added this incredibly sharp rebuke, saying, "Football is not FIFA's to sell." Ouch. This wasn't just a squabble over money, it was a fundamental clash over the actual soul of the sport.
And the geographical weight of this revolt against FIFA President Gianni Infantino was massive. UEFA strongly opposed. CONCACAF, representing North and Central America, they formally rejected it, pointing to a lack of due process. The Asian Football Confederation withheld their support, calling the lack of consultation totally unacceptable. Infantino was suddenly staring down a unified global wall of resistance from some of the most powerful organizations on the planet.
Part 4. Boycotts and political backlash. Because this crisis didn't just stay confined to sports administrators, it rapidly bled into international politics and even triggered a mutiny inside FIFA's own headquarters.
The speed of this timeline just shows the sheer panic of the situation. So Tuesday, July 28th, the plan is announced. By Thursday, July 30th, all 55 of UEFA's member associations unanimously threatened to boycott future World Cups, including the 2027 Women's World Cup and the 2030 Men's World Cup, unless the plan is totally abandoned. I mean, that is the nuclear option. And by Friday, July 31st, the entire plan is scrapped. 4 days. That's all it took.
You also have to remember, this was far bigger than an internal football dispute. The political blowback was fierce across the board. In the UK, Prime Minister Andy Burnham said selling a stake meant selling out the tournament. Over in the US, Representative Jamie Raskin warned of potential congressional scrutiny over a multi-billion-dollar commercial sell-off. EU Commissioner Glenn McAuliffe raised major governance concerns. And internally, the pressure was so immense that FIFA senior advisor Carlos Cordero actually resigned in protest, calling the whole thing a bad deal for football.
Finally, Part 5, the plan collapses. With boycotts looming and politicians circling, the pressure obviously hit a breaking point. Let's look at the climax and the lingering aftermath of this abandoned proposal. On July 31st, just days after pitching this revolutionary $20 billion enterprise, Gianni Infantino completely pulled the plug. He withdrew the proposal entirely. His reasoning was that the project had created divisions that were no longer in the interest of its original objective, which was supposed to be strengthening football development and unity. Basically, FIFA Forward Enterprise suffered a sudden death before it even took its first real breath.
But here's the thing, just withdrawing the plan didn't magically fix the damage. The trust was already broken. The English FA publicly backed UEFA and demanded a full and robust review of FIFA's leadership. And it's more than just words. Reports indicate that the English FA is gearing up to officially withdraw its support for Gianni Infantino's 2027 re-election campaign. For one of FIFA's founding associations to pull its backing, that is a massively symbolic blow.
So yeah, the commercial plan might be dead, but the political crisis for Infantino is just beginning. UEFA's lawyers issued a document preservation notice to FIFA officials instructing them to keep all emails and messages, which is a severe legal threat. The Wales FA became the first to officially withdraw their endorsement for Infantino's candidacy. Looking ahead to the 2027 elections, Infantino is going to have to rely incredibly heavily on securing votes from Africa, Asia, South America, and Oceania just to maintain his presidency.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we need to walk away with today. Has this wild, 4-day controversy permanently damaged Gianni Infantino's authority? Can a president who just faced a unified global revolt over the commercialization of the sport actually regain the trust of the federations he needs to lead? The future of global football governance is absolutely on the line here, and the aftershocks of FIFA Forward Enterprise are going to be felt for years. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on this developing story.